Hi, and welcome to this live reading from Exposed by Leah Cherry, and this is presented by Itsy Bitsy Book Bits. Chapter 1. Faces danced around me as the light of the pyre heated my core. Their singing vibrated every cell within my body. My blood hummed to the frequency as the chants echoed through the alcove where the ceremony took place. The slight wind carried the scent of seawater and mixed it with the smell of white sage burning in the fire. It is said that it cleanses the air and the aura from all negativity, and hell only knew the negativity I was carrying with me. Mavine's people thought it wise to celebrate and honor the goddess for her protection of Samina. My mother, who I thought to have died saving my life at 3, somehow came to me in spirit to ask for my help, to save her soul from the ethereal and reunite it with her body. Some of the witches said it was a miracle that she survived the spell all those years ago, but she also survived in a comatose state since then without deteriorating a day. To top it off, she was also in the hands of the worst tainted being in the universe, Garais, for who knows how long. It all still felt surreal. In the last few weeks, I had lost Ryker, who sacrificed himself to destroy Garais, only for me to realize that he was now possessed and still out there. I had found out who my father was, and that was not only did I know him for years, but also he was a descendant of a Tainted, the villainous version of what I am, a pure. To top everything off, after I thought Ryker was gone, I lost my powers and was haunted by a ghost that begged me for help, and only after discovering who my father was did I realize my mother never died all those years ago. I felt numb as I sat on the sand, surrounded by a celebration to give thanks for all the blessings in our lives. My mind tried to think of ways to save my mother, Ryker, and the entire magical world before Garais could tap into the mystical powers Ryker had locked away in his body. Thinking of them both in the same body made my head hurt. What could Ryker hide and keep from his brother occupying his body? What did Garais have access to while possessing Ryker? I know Garais had powers. He demonstrated that at the cabin when I found my mother's unconscious body, but the question remained, how much does he have? Can I defeat him once and for all? Would I need help? All these questions swam in my mind as I stared dazed at the pyre. The flickering colors danced to the music as ember sparks drifted through the sky, joining the stars. You should be celebrating. Mavine sneaked up and sat beside me with a goblet in her hands. Her blue eyes sparkled in the pyre's light. Her blonde hair was tied up slightly to hold her priestess crown in place. She radiated her role as priestess of the Wiccan coven, and I couldn't believe that this majestic being sitting right next to me was my spunky art teacher in school. The personalities were so different. Sorry, I stated as my gaze drifted back to my surroundings. I just have a lot on my mind. That I do believe. Some of our best healers are with Samina now, trying to bring her back to us. It's not just that, it's Ryker too. There's so much that needs to be done, but I don't know where to start. I stared at the drink in my hand, still half full and warm now from grasping it tightly. Calm your mind, child. Running after answers will never bring them to you. Use tonight to give thanks to the goddess and relinquish all fear and doubt to her, and before you know it, the answers will come to you. Before I could say anything else, Mavine was already walking away from me towards the celebration. Goddess, I release all negativity to be transmuted into love and light. I give thanks for your gifts and protection and honor your timing in giving me the answers I seek. I spoke to the night sky, lifted my chalice in a salute to the unseen being, wherever she may be, and drank from the cup. It is, after all, lousy luck if you cheer and don't drink. The heat of the wine traveled down my throat and settled in my stomach. It tasted of berries and wood, grounding elements for the celebration. My shoulders dropped, and it was only after I sat up straighter that I realized how tense I had been holding my body. The night was surrounded by life, as people danced around the fire, singing and chanting to the drums and flutes, creating a melody fit for the fae. My eyes caught a few folks. I couldn't recall their names, as I had only exchanged pleasantries with them once or twice, but they knew who I was and beckoned me closer. As I neared the pyre, the witches smiled, embraced me, and spoke words of encouragement and blessings as they kept filling my cup. That's the thing about the coven. They didn't care about the legal drinking laws, as they saw that the body you have now might be young, but you were born with many lives behind you. So the body might be underage, according to the state, but your soul has been reincarnated enough times to cancel out that thought. May told me that if you do not celebrate well, it could be seen as an insult to the goddess, and right now, I wanted her on my side. I needed her, to be honest, as she would be the one who would provide me with the answers I needed. Hours passed, and the moon peeked out from the horizon, so lusciously full and bright that it lit up the ground, casting shadows where people danced. The wine started going to my head and released me from the stress I had been clinging to. My mind opened up to the joys and happiness surrounding me, and for those few hours, the worries of my mother and Ryker took a back seat, and I could enjoy the life that I was meant to have. It got me thinking that this would be a regular occurrence if I didn't have to prepare myself and my magic to rid the world of the tainted. My mind went to the what-ifs of my life. What if my mother never died when I thought she did? What if I grew up knowing who I was? What if my father had been present throughout my childhood? Would things have been different? If there was no danger looming over us and the tainted never existed, would I still have May and Dakin as my friends? If I wasn't a descendant of the pure, would I still exist? The energies around me danced, caressing my skin as if to comfort my thoughts and ease my mind. I knew I wasn't alone and that various entities and deities were also present in the night sky. Nothing made sense, but everything did. Time passed slowly as everything swirled in my vision. I knew I had enough to drink and needed air, but I was already outside. My lungs felt constricted and I struggled for breath. My head was spinning, and the energies around me felt colder now, even though the pyre still burned bright and the wind was silent. It was an icy sensation, like someone had poured water over me. Something was wrong. I could feel it, but when I looked at those around me, it seemed that I was the only one experiencing this. At first, I thought it might have been a cold spot, maybe from some dearly departed who joined in on the festivities, so I made my way towards the other side of the fire. I was hoping the cold would leave me and that it was all just some spiritual event that I shouldn't be taking seriously. Still, the water-kissed feeling surrounded me. It followed me around like a shadow clinging to its host. I may need to ground myself. Taking off my shoes, I went to stand on more solid ground, grabbing some carrots and nuts off the table as I passed. Walking away from the celebration, I began nibbling on the soil and grass. I started feeling better, my head started clearing, and I felt more solidified in my body, but the chill still surrounded me. Maybe it was because now I was away from the heat of the fire, or perhaps it was because of the shadow lurking between the tree line and staring at me as if it was glaring right into my soul. Chills ran through me as a familiar scent hit me. I tried to place it, knowing I'd smelled it before. Rich, clean, earthy musk and ocean breeze, but it wasn't the nature that I was encircled with. No, it was more manufactured, like a cologne or body wash. I knew it was familiar, but my mind couldn't place it. Keeping my eyes on the shadow, I started walking toward it. I needed to know who was invading our sacred space. Their vibe wasn't inviting or pleasant, so I knew they did not belong there. They needed to leave, and I would make them well if they refused. As I got closer and the moon peered through the canopy above me, the figure became more visible. It was a man, tall, confident. His aroma became more potent, and I felt a contradicting emotion coming from him. There was fear, but relief. What was he relieved about, and what did he have to fear? The shadows sheltered his face, but my stomach churned as he dipped his head and smiled at me. I dropped the snacks I held and immediately called upon my powers. A blinding white light formed in my palm, and just as I threw the Powerball at him, he vanished into thin air. The magic went through the space he had occupied and hit one of the trees behind, sending a deafening thunderclap through the area, lighting up the surrounding trees before I saw the tree break in half and plunge to the ground. I knew that everyone else had heard the shattering of the tree trunk. People were aware of me and my surroundings after the music stopped. It didn't even take a minute before May and the priestess came to my side, followed by my familiar Dakin, whose eyes seemed to glow silver in the moonlight. "What happened?" Maeve asked, ready to pounce on unsuspecting victims. "Are you okay?" May questioned as she touched my arm gently. I nodded towards the fallen tree, my eyes scanning the remaining ones for any sign of our intruder. He was here, right by the tree. Dakin immediately took off in the direction, followed by May and a few male witches. I still feel weird calling men witches, but they refuse to be called wizards, saying that the term only references Merlin and Harry Potter, and that they are one with nature and do not hold wands or staffs. May and Dakin returned after a few minutes, confusion settling on their faces. There's no one around. Who was here? Who did you see? May asked as her eyes moved from me to Dakin as if in silent conversation. It was him. I know it. I could even smell him around. There was no one. I can't smell anything, Dakin replied, looking confused, and I knew he considered that his familiar abilities hadn't been enough. Who was here? May asked, sounding impatient, but everyone froze when I let my eyes fall on them and away from the trees. Gorais.